The galaxy did not remember the old human wars. Not truly. Not the way they had been lived. The empires that spread themselves across the stars believed they knew violence, believed they had recorded every threat, archived every extinction, catalogued every terrifying species that once crawled out of the dark of forgotten worlds. They thought they had mastered fear. They whispered names of ancient enemies with the confidence of those who believed history was theirs to control. But there was one name they never spoke. One name no database contained. One name no archivist dared record. One name that had been erased by the humans themselves, not out of pride, but out of terror of what might happen if it was ever remembered again. Baba Yaga, not the storybook myth adopted by old Terran cultures. Not the cackling witch in the forests. Not the ghost of a wooden hut that walked on chicken legs. But the original source, a human weapon so precise, so devastating, so unstoppable that humanity had buried every instance of her existence, buried it deep enough that no galactic intelligence could rediscover it. She was not a war hero. She was not a super soldier. She was a mechanism of annihilation wearing human skin, built in the chaos of a war humanity could not win unless they created something they could not control, and for 600 years, that something had slept. Hidden. Fading into a nobody. A harmless mother on a distant frontier colony with 3 small daughters who knew nothing of the power they carried in their blood. This was a peaceful world. A quiet world. The kind of place where settlers built homes with their own hands, where artificial lights dimmed not because of technological scarcity but because they preferred the softness of warmth to the glare of efficiency. The ground was rich, the air clean. Creatures moved through the forests with the gentle indifference of beings who had never known war. Among these forests lived Yana and her daughters. To Tio the settlers, she was simply a widow raising 3 girls alone, a woman with a strange stillness in her eyes and a past she never discussed. She spoke little, worked hard, and never seemed tired no matter how long the day was. Some whispered that she felt off in a way they could not explain. But she never caused trouble. She harmed no one. And her daughters, Lyra, Micah, and Sue, were bright, curious, and kind. The colony loved them. They were good children. Human children. And then the Galactic Empire noticed them. T began with a whisper in the Imperial Ascendancy bioarchive. A forgotten data shard surfaced during a routine reindexing. A genetic pattern flagged itself. Terran, but not normal. Not civilian. It was an artifact from a war the Empire had not even existed to witness. A relic from humanity's darkest era. The signature matched. 3 times 0.3 little girls on a forgotten frontier world lit the Empire sensors like a supernova. The order came fast. A strike team dispatched. Not to negotiate. Not to observe. To capture. The colony's night sky split open in a flash of white light as Imperial cruisers fell into orbit without warning. Settlers woke in panic as shockwaves rippled across the ground. Dozens of ships pierced the clouds, engines screaming, the descent shaking the forests as metal beasts dropped anchor cables and spread across the settlement with tactical precision. Yana sensed them before the alarm sounded. Her head turned slowly toward the sky as the ground trembled. She told her daughters to hide. They hesitated. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Something in her expression made them freeze. Her calm was terrifying. By the time the first gunships landed, she had already positioned herself between them and the house. The Imperial soldiers who approached her did so with weapons raised, scanners humming, armor plates pulsing with electric patterns that seemed confident, secure, invincible. They announced their purpose in the cold tones of protocol. By decree of the Imperial Ascendancy, you will surrender the hybrid miners for containment and evaluation. Yana did not move. She did not blink. She said nothing. The soldiers thought she was frightened. They were wrong. When she refused, the order to neutralize her was given without hesitation. To them, she was an obstacle. Nothing more. One soldier stepped forward and fired a directed stun bolt meant to drop a charging beast. Yana did not fall. She caught the bolt. Her hand closed around the energy pulse as if it were nothing more than a spark. The soldier staring at her didn't even have time to scream before she flicked the captured charge back at him. His armor folded inward. His body collapsed to the ground smoking. The Empire learned the first lesson that night. They had not come for children. They had provoked a nightmare. What followed was short and brutal. Yana moved faster than their targeting systems could track. Every weapon pointed at her became useless. Every soldier who tried to flank her fell before they understood what she was. But there were too many. She was fast. She was lethal. She was beyond anything they had training for. But she was not fighting to win. She was fighting to reach her daughters, and that was the only thing they prepared for. A secondary strike team breached the house from the rear. 3 tranquilizer bolts. 3 small bodies carried into containment pods. The girls vanished into the belly of an awaiting cruiser just as Yana broke through the front ranks. She saw the ship lifting off. She ran. The engines flared. She leapt, and a blast from an orbital cannon scorched the ground between her and the ship. A shockwave hurled her back, tearing trees from the earth. When she rose, the sky was empty. The Empire did not stay to fight the monster they had awakened. They fled with their prize. Leaving the colony burning, Yana stood in the center of the ruins. The flames reflected in her eyes without lighting them. She inhaled once, long and slow, as if she were remembering how to breathe. For years she had suppressed who she was. For her daughters. For peace. But peace had been taken from her. And when she was stripped of peace, the thing beneath her humanity began to uncoil. She walked through the ashes. Her footsteps left no sound. The pain in her chest was not the pain of loss. It was the ignition of something ancient, something engineered, something that had destroyed entire species centuries before the Empire had risen. She was not simply angry. She was not grieving. She was activating. She reached the tree line beyond the settlement. The forest was silent. Not out of fear, but out of anticipation. Something else was stirring. Something massive. Something old. 2 shadows moved between the trees. The first stepped into the light, a towering shape of dense muscle and obsidian fur, 2 meters taller than any human, with amber eyes that gleamed with intelligence. Gorak, the strategist, the eldest. The second emerged with heavier steps, breathing like a storm, his enormous frame rippling with raw, destructive power. Brum, the unstoppable one, the executioner. The Empire had no records of them. Most humans didn't either. The legends humans once called Bigfoot had never been mere forest animals. Not originally. They were engineered by the same program that created Yana, designed to be the perfect terrestrial shock troops, guardians to the Apollyon Protocol, and they answered only to her. The 2 giants knelt before their commander. Mother, Gorak rumbled, his voice a low vibration that shook the leaves. We felt your signal. Brum sniffed the air, eyes narrowing. Your daughters. Gone. Yana said nothing for a long moment. Then, in a whisper that carried more threat than 1,000 soldiers, she spoke. They took what is mine. Gorak straightened. The Empire's borders trembled long before Baba Yaga reached them. Word spread faster than any official report, carried by terrified survivors and intercepted distress calls that ended in static and screaming. Entire listening posts went silent within minutes of detecting her ship. Fleets scrambled to reinforce outer sectors, but nothing they deployed mattered. They were preparing for a war. She was preparing for a retrieval. The difference in scale was infinite. To the Empire, this was an existential threat. To her, it was personal. The second outpost fell faster than the first. This time the Empire didn't even attempt negotiation. They fired at her ship the moment it dropped from slipspace. The beams struck her hull and did nothing. Not a scorch mark. Not a tremor. They might as well have thrown sand. Yana walked through the fire like she was made of iron and inevitability. Gorak acted first, disabling the command center before alarms fully finished sounding. Brum crashed through a line of heavy troopers, scattering their bodies across the deck like discarded fabric. The station's commanding officer tried to flee through an emergency hatch, But Yana was already there. She didn't strike him. She didn't look at him. She simply extracted his access codes directly from the terminal he was trying to reach. She was not here for blood. She was here for information. The blood was simply a consequence. With each outpost destroyed, she drew closer to the Imperial Citadel, holding her daughters die in the heart of that citadel. Deep within a cold, metallic labyrinth, Lyra, Micah, and Sua huddled together in a containment cell designed for alien prisoners of war, not human children. They didn't understand why they'd been taken. They didn't understand why the doctors wouldn't speak to them without masks. They didn't understand the needles, the scanners, the glowing instruments that hummed around their bodies. But they understood one thing. Their mother was coming. They felt it in their bones. A pull. A pressure. A vibration humming faintly through the walls. A heartbeat they recognized even when worlds apart. The scientists, however, felt something else entirely. Dread. The chief xenobiologist, a pale, chitan-skinned Vaskri, paced in frantic circles around a console filled with rapidly flashing warnings. He had led the research team that approved the abduction of the 3 girls. He had expected fame, funding, prestige, a breakthrough in hybrid evolution that would elevate him to the Imperial High Council. Instead, he now stared at sensor logs showing entire Imperial sectors collapsing. "She's coming," he whispered, mandibles clicking with anxiety. "We have awoken a force we cannot contain." His assistant trembled. Why didn't she die? The archive said Apollyon protocol was unstable, unsustainable, unstable for humans, not unstable for her. His mandibles clicked again, faster. "We did not capture children. We captured triggers." Down the hall, guards triple-checked their containment weapons. Barriers were reinforced. Additional squads were deployed. But every soldier who entered the facility looked over their shoulder like a prey animal scanning for an unseen predator. The Empire was vast, but its courage was small when facing a legend it didn't understand. Above the Citadel, 3 Dreadnought-class battleships orbited silently, weapons locked, engines burning hot enough to distort nearby space. They were the Empire's last defense. Their captains spoke to one another on a secure channel, voices tight with fear. "If she breaches the outer defenses, we open fire. It won't matter. We have to try. The Emperor demands. The Emperor can demand whatever he wants," another captain snapped. "I saw what happened in the Vega Drift." She tore apart a carrier group with her bare hands. "Those are rumors. They are not rumors. I saw the footage before they locked it behind red clearance." The channel went dead, space rippled. Her ship arrived. There was no dramatic flare of engines. No roaring declaration. Just a silent slipspace exit and an immediate acceleration that brought her vessel directly toward the planet's orbital defense grid. The dreadnoughts fired .3 beams of condensed stellar-grade plasma cut across the void, converging on her ship. The light should have consumed it. The heat should have vaporized it. The energy output was enough to obliterate an asteroid. But Yana's ship twisted once, folding its hull like liquid metal, and the beams passed around it, split, reflected, and dissipated in clouds of harmless particles. "Impossible," one captain whispered. "Fire again," another barked. They fired. And fired. And fired. It didn't matter. Her ship slipped through the barrage like water through fingers. It closed the distance. One dreadnought attempted to ram her. Instead, her ship rotated, brushed its hull, and the dreadnought collapsed inward as if crushed by an invisible fist. The other 2 broke formation. Her ship shot between them, releasing a silent EMP pulse strong enough to fry every circuit on the vessels. They went dark. Their engines died. Their weapons went offline. Power vanished. The dreadnoughts drifted helplessly. She descended to the Citadel dais. The hull doors opened. Yana stepped out with Gorak and Brum flanking her like 2 walking catastrophes. The ground cracked beneath their feet. Reinforced blast doors sealed shut. The alarm system shrieked across every corridor. The Imperial Admiral in charge of the Citadel watched from a command balcony high above. He had seen battles before. He had survived wars. But as he stared at the figures walking across the landing platform, he understood that survival was not an option. A voice trembled behind him. "Sir, what are your orders?" He swallowed. "Pray." The first line of soldiers fired at Yana. The bolts hit her, dissolved, and scattered into harmless sparks. Gorak threw a trooper into a wall so hard the metal bent inward. Brum grabbed a heavy tank that rolled toward them and flipped it upside down like a toy, then punched through its armor plating to silence the pilot. The Empire fought with desperation. Yana moved with precision. She wasn't trying to destroy them. Though she could, she was trying to reach her daughters. Every time a soldier attempted a flank, Gorak intercepted. Every time an armored walker advanced, Brum shattered it. They didn't slow. They didn't falter. They didn't hesitate. The Citadel's main gate collapsed under the force of Brum's shoulders. Yana stepped into the central hall, eyes narrowing. She could feel them. Her daughters. Close, the Empire's elite guards, towering Xenovore shock troopers, charged. They were genetically enhanced, bred for battle, towering nightmares with bone armor and plasma halberds. 12 of them closed in on Yana with synchronized precision. She kept walking. One slashed at her head. She ducked. Another thrust forward. She caught the blade between two fingers. A third came from behind. She stepped aside with no wasted movement. She disarmed them all, shattering their weapons, breaking their limbs, dropping them one by one in a silent blur. It took 10 seconds. None rose again. The alarms grew frantic. Deep in the Citadel, the scientists tried to move the girls to a more secure chamber. But Lyra suddenly cried out, collapsing to her knees. Micah grabbed her shoulders. Sua looked at the ceiling as if she could see someone approaching through layers of metal. They felt their mother, and something inside them answered. The lights flickered. Containment fields crackled, monitoring screens flashed warnings. Genes, all 3 girls' genes, triggered spontaneous activation. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. The air around her shook, small waves of invisible force pushing outward. Micah's skin hardened, shifting into crystalline density that shimmered under the fluorescent lights. Sua's pupils expanded as if absorbing the entire spectrum of light, reflections dancing in her gaze at speeds no normal human brain could process. The scientists panicked. Restrain them. We can still salvage the research. No. Do not touch them. A guard reached for Lyra's arm. He flew backward into a wall so hard his armor cracked. Another tried to stun Micah. The bolts ricocheted off her crystallized skin. A third attempted to grab Sui. She was no longer there. She already knew where to move. She was already behind him. She didn't understand how she moved so fast. She only understood that something inside her demanded she protect her sisters. In the hallway outside, guards ran desperately toward the lab, weapons raised, hearts pounding. They never reached the door. Exploded inward as Gorak burst through, tearing aside armored panels like cloth. He saw the girls. His expression softened, rare for a being whose face was built for war. Children, he rumbled, your mother waits. Brum followed, stepping over overturned consoles. The girls had never seen beings like them. But they were not afraid. They recognized something familiar in the 2 giants' presence. Something safe. Sua reached out and touched Brum's wrist. Mama's close. He nodded. Yana arrived 19 seconds later. The doors to the containment lab slid open. She stepped inside. She saw them. Her daughters. Free. Awake. Changed. The Empire had tried to break them. Instead, they had awakened their inheritance. For a moment, one brief moment, the monster inside her paused. A mother stood in her place. My girls, she whispered. They ran to her. She held them, one arm around each, letting herself feel the warmth she had feared she'd never feel again. Gorak and Brum stood behind her like stone pillars guarding a sacred truth. But the moment ended as the room shuddered violently. The Emperor had arrived. From a descending carrier above the Citadel, a telepathic broadcast echoed across the facility. Every soldier, every scientist, every machine trembled beneath the weight of it. Yana of terror. Apollyon 0. Surrender. For the sake of your offspring. The walls cracked under the pressure of his voice. Lyra trembled. Micah leaned closer to Yana. Sue's pupils narrowed to slits. Yana looked upward. Her voice was calm. You touched my children. Outside, the Emperor's carrier unleashed its superweapon, a gravitational implosion detonator capable of collapsing a city into a singularity. It fell toward the citadel, humming with catastrophic power. Yana didn't move. Because her daughters did, Lyra raised her hand. The device slowed. Micah braced her palms outward. Its collapsing field shattered against her crystalline skin. Sui calculated every vector of force in half a heartbeat and moved faster than gravity itself. She touched the device, redirected it, and sent it shooting upward into the Emperor's own carrier. For one silent instant, the sky froze. Then the carrier imploded. A blooming sphere of distorted light swallowed half the Imperial Armada before collapsing into dust. The Emperor did not scream. He did not beg. He simply disappeared, consumed by the same weapon he had hoped would kill them. The citadel shook. Power failed. Entire battalions surrendered without a fight. Yana held her daughters close. It's over, she said softly. For the Empire, it truly was. By the next day, worlds across their territory rebelled. Commanders abandoned posts. Systems declared independence. The Empire had built itself on the belief that humanity was weak. They had built themselves on the philosophy that fear governed the galaxy. Now they learned what fear truly was. They had awakened Baba Yaga, and humanity had answered. Yana took her daughters aboard her ship with Gorak and Brum following close behind. The galaxy watched in silence as the vessel rose into orbit. Nations whispered. Species trembled. But Yana did not seek conquest. She sought safety. Her daughters slept in her arms. Finally at peace, Gorak asked, "What now, Mother?" Yana looked at the stars. 1,000 empires, 1,000 threats, 1,000 futures. Now, she said, we build a home where no one will ever take our children again. Her ship vanished into slip space. The galaxy never forgot the lesson she left behind. Humans were not monsters, but if you stole their children, you would meet the thing older than monsters, the mother of night-walking death. The real Baba Yaga, and she never came for peace, she came for blood.